Alright, in this video I want to give you just a kind of an overview of a few things that are happening in animation and how it overall works, and then a couple ideas that you might want to use in your program. So here I have kind of where I left off in my assignment 1 of having all these functions, right? So I have a function for the sun, the mountains, the bird. I never actually drew the sun or the bird yet, but I did draw some mountains. I changed the colors because I wanted to be able to see something that I was about to do. So right now it looks like that, which is just some basic mountains in the wrong spot, and this isn't a very good picture, so hopefully yours works better than mine. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to add some stars and have some stars twinkling in the sky kind of thing. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add a function. So I think to myself, well, my stars probably are in the background of my picture. Like I would not want them over the mountains. I'd want them in back of the mountains, right? So I'm going to put them first in the order of things drawn. Then I am going to create my function for it. So let me just draw one star to kind of show you what it is that we're going to do. So I'm going to just draw my stars as basic circles. Where do I want to put my star? Well, let's just start by saying let's put a star in that's kind of the top corner, top left. It needs a certain thickness or a certain radius. These are kind of small circles. They're just kind of circles twinkling in the background. So let's try 3. Maybe that's even too big and you just want single dots. I don't know, but let's see how this works. So I've got a white star in the background, so let's just run that. Okay, there's a star. Yeah, what if I filled the sky with those? That would be so pretty. But now what do? I want to create like a million of these with different points. So what I'm going to do instead is I am going to import my random functions. And the basic idea here, instead of making this 100 100 where every single time it draws it, it's drawing at the same spot, I'm going to draw it instead at, let's call it star X and star Y. Now just to make this easier to read, I think I'll call it star underscore X and star underscore Y, because I'm going to have a lot of different X's and Y's by the time I'm done with this. And so what I want to do is I want to say, don't just put star X, like don't just make this 100, right? Like I could say star X equals 100, and that's the same as it was before. And star Y equals 100. But instead of 100, I'm going to make it a random number. And now you have to ask yourself, what's the range of random numbers I want? So my X, my left and right, I want it to be anywhere from 0 to 799. So it shows up somewhere across the sky, right? The whole sky is fair game for me. How about my up and down? Well, do I want it to appear up and down the screen? No, actually I don't. I want it to appear towards the top of the screen. So I can look here at my mountains. My mountains kind of stop at 300 down when I built them. That's the farthest down the mountains go. So like if I had a lake down here underneath the mountains, I wouldn't want my stars to be in the lake unless they were cool reflections, which that sounds fancy. So here, now it's going to create a random number and then another random number, and it's going to put that at there. So is it only going to draw one star? No, this isn't a loop. So watch what happens. Instead of just drawing one star, I kind of get these twinkly stars. Now, this isn't perfect. For one thing, it is only drawing one star at a time. Watch, if I hit pause. Oh, it must be behind a mountain. If I hit pause, there's only one star on the screen at a time, but because it's running a loop, it seems like there's a lot of stars running, right? And you might say, well, that's a little too, twinkly. But it is an effect. It does kind of give us an animated effect and kind of show that our picture is almost alive or something. Also, because I put them behind the mountains, I think it's kind of cool that you never see them. Sometimes you see them on the edges of the mountains, but you should never see them actually behind the mountains. So, in front of the mountains. So that's kind of nice. Now maybe, I don't know. What if I made them smaller? Ooh, maybe I like them size 2. Now, what if you wanted a few more on the screen at once? Well, you could then add like maybe 3 stars at a time. Just kind of copy and paste this and do 3. Now, there's a thing called lists, and if you've done a list, theoretically, you could make a list of stars and do a bunch of them at the same time. But we're not going to go that fancy yet. We're going to save that for later. Um, but if you could figure it out if you wanted to, it'd be just making these into lists. But basically, notice that because this is a loop, this changes over and over again, right? So yeah, you can make it better, but that's not bad for a start. And then I want to draw the sun as well, and do something with the sun. So let's go ahead and say, oops, canvas dot draw circle, and I'm say, oh, I know, I'm gonna make this at sun X and sun Y. And how big is my sun? Well, I don't know, is it 100 pixels maybe? And it's yellow. Now I'm gonna have stars and the sun at the same time, so what if I change this whole idea to a moon? Maybe it should be a moon, but for right now we'll keep it a sun, right? So, I run this now, it's going to give me an error because I haven't defined what sun X and sun Y are, right? So it's like, what are those? So I say, well, sun X is, just to start, I'm going to put it smack dab in the middle of the screen, but maybe towards the top. And so it's not moving. Ooh, that would be a cool moon, right? It's not moving at all, it's just sitting there because these numbers don't change. So how do I change these numbers? Well, I want it to be 400, but then I want it to change as it's drawing. But I don't want it to be a random number, or my sun or moon would just start popping up all over the screen. That would be odd. So instead I want these to kind of move in a predicted pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two variables, and I'm going to move them up here to the top. So these are now my starting numbers, but I don't want it to always be those numbers. I just want it to start there. Now, because we're doing that, these are outside of our function, which makes them into what we call global variables. So we're going to have to say global sun X and sun Y here, just so we can use them like, hey, these are supposed to equal these ones that we set up here. So that's what the global does. So again, nothing's changed, it still works the same. But what if I say here sun X plus equals 1 and sun Y plus equals 1? What would happen? So every time it does this loop, my X and my Y are gonna increase by 1. So why doesn't it like that? Oh, because I don't remember my underscores, so it doesn't know it's the same thing. Alright, let's try that again. So now they're increasing by 1 every time. Increasing X by 1 moves it to the right, and increasing Y by 1 moves it down. So there it goes. It's done. It just left the screen, right? So that's not necessarily what we want. In fact, what if I don't want the X to move at all, but I want it to move up the screen because I want it to, like a moonrise. So then I could run it and it would be something like this. And then it would leave. So you could think to yourself, well, I don't want my sun Y to move, I want my sun X to move. And I want it to start all the way on at 0. And then it would go like that and move across the screen. Now that doesn't exactly look like a sun anymore, but what if I put a boat or a car in a city or something like that, right? And all you're required to do in this assignment is have it move across the screen once. You would not have to do it multiple times because that's too complicated. Now if you want to see more than that, we'll get complicated in the next assignment or in the next video.